they're pretty ready to listen. And I think as providers, as long as we're going kind of line by line on the labs and telling them, yes, you may be in a normal range, but that's not considered optimal. And, this is what evidence-based medicine says is optimal. And, validating for them why they feel the way that they do, they're much more likely to be compliant. And then for us at the get-go to set those expectations that it's going to take 3, 6, 9 months. This isn't going to get better right away. And I think if we set that up right at the beginning, you don't have patients coming back upset because they didn't get the results they were expecting, 2 weeks after their implant. You have to set those expectations up front. And I think they are very much more receptive to that.
I have a follow-up question for you. I'm a patient, I'm sitting in your chair, and I see, the lab range is 2 to 21, and I'm 19. It says normal. What gives you the right to tell me that's not normal?
I just basically will tell them that the lab ranges that you find on lab reference ranges are often population based at that age. Most people aren't coming to us to feel their age. Most of them are like, I don't like how I feel. So yes, those ranges may be normal for this subset of people, but when you're talking about hormones, it's, everybody feels different at different levels. And there are many, many, many studies that show that optimal values may be different or maybe super therapeutic than the reference range. And I think that gives them, we're not just making their levels crazy high, that there is evidence-based medicine to back up what we're doing. So.
Okay. I have one more thing to add to that. Well, I'll follow it up with a question. Do you know why thyroid levels of normal are so far off on a lab?
The latest research that came out in 2020, 2021 says that we shouldn't even be looking at a TSH because it's a poor indicator of thyroid health, that we should be looking at the T3. And we're exposed to so many endocrine disruptors in the environment or whatever that might be, lifestyle, whatever that might be, metabolic health that's poor. So those things affect, your levels. So if your T3 is not optimal, it doesn't really matter what your TSH is. You're trying to achieve an optimal the active thyroid hormone is T3. So that's what we want to optimize. And there's lots of studies to back that thought process up.
So I'm going to follow it up with 2 things. One, human dormancy syndrome. Are you guys aware of that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I am going to send you a patent filing about human dormancy syndrome that was filed, 10, 15 years ago by this incredible man I've had the honor to work with. And I'd love for you to have it as a good read. I think that would be a really, really cool next session for us. That's one, human dormancy syndrome, okay? Because everything you're talking about right now is really understanding the ability to know when the body is naturally in a hibernating state, because we're designed to hibernate, but we're not living like we are, which is why winter is even more tough on some people, because that's when bears hibernate. That's when the body hibernates. And it's all interrelated and interconnected to the vagus nerve. And understanding the dynamic impact of recognizing a body that is in a state of hibernation. Like, so much of us in a hibernated state, we're not supposed to eat. So a lot of people with irritable bowel syndrome is because their guts shut down, because there is a stimuli telling them we're hibernating. So everything becomes irritable. So that's just a little taste of that, just to give you an idea. Make sense? It's all interconnected. Now, one thing I will tell you is, if I took 1,000 patients that have come across New Leaf 5 years before they came to New Leaf, before New Leaf even existed, if I took 1,000 of those patients and I said, how you feeling? And I took their labs and I took the average of all these people and said, this is normal, there would be a lot of wrong in our reference range, correct?
Mm-hmm.
The majority of thyroid panel references, the trials came from people who took fluoride water. The majority of the reference ranges that you see in clinical publications now are coming from unaware, unhealthy people. But that is our normal spectrum. Because a reference range comes from a standardization protocol of 95%, right? We have the outliers on this side, the outliers on this side, and then we get the chart of the standard curve. The average mean of the standard curve is the reference range. Well, if I just took 1,000 people who came to New Leaf, pre-implants and pre-therapy and pre-whatever, and called that normal, my reference range doesn't mean anything. The majority of reference ranges that you see that are 50 years old and 30 years old and 70 years old are coming from the basis that they needed a healthy population